Greetings, dear hearts, for picking this subject of the deeper forms of praying. Depth praying, maybe we could have called it, or going into the depths of prayer. But I think that you catch the hint of what this is about, and it's a very, very important topic for me. It's very personal, and I want to share with you my own experience of this, what this topic means to me, how I practice this kind of a topic in order to see whether or not this is something that's helpful to you, and I hope, of course, that it is. You've been with this topic of prayer featured in a number of the topics that we have spoken of, and one of them, of course, was that I presented to you with 4 forms of prayer which I felt covered a significant area to be helpful to you. That God show me how to look at myself, God show me how to look at others, God show me how to look at you, God show me how to handle circumstances that we're in, and we're waiting God's solutions to these issues and problems that beset us. What this is going to go into, though, is when I want to get into a depth of prayer, when I feel the desire to get into a depth of prayer. Now let me start from an unusual place. I don't get myself to that place. What I'm calling depth of prayer is that I am yearning to fall so deeply into the place where God is present that I lay in that place, I sit in the place, I am in the place, I am plunged into the place, I yearn to be in that place, simply awaiting what God is going to utilize it for. Am I going to tell you, oh Bob, please instruct me how to get there? Number 1, I don't get there. Surprise? Well, you know maybe what's coming next. Guess who's going to get me there? You guessed it. It's God is going to get me there. My human mind does not want to get me there. If anything, it wants to get me away from that kind of stuff, because my human mind wants to look like the big caboodle. That's the boss, and this is the ultimate authority and the ultimate place to worship. And so my human mind has no intention of wanting to help me go get to God. So that if I get to this place, it's God's working on me to set me up to get there. I'll go further than that. Not only do I say it's God's job to set me up to be able to get there, it's God who motivates my desire to suddenly want to get there. And I can give you one example of it, because it happened the other morning. Oh, it must have been maybe about 5, 6 in the morning, and I awaken, and my mind goes off into its usual kinds of distracting fantasies, and then suddenly I had this desire to stop and to want to be able to give myself to God. For what reason? Because I know that I find my one purpose and my one and only meaning in this life is to be able to give my availability to God, for God to get my availability, that He can place in my mind the healing aspects, the healing thoughts that do a job on me and do the job through me with others in order to heal them. I yearn for it. And there I am laying in bed, and I just suddenly turn somewhat over to my side. I always lean to the left, to the right, and just yearn to be able to collapse. Now, I pray to Jesus and Mary, but remember that you listen to this stuff according to your own definition of God and your own religious practices. But I want to be comfortable in the way I talk about it also, knowing, not trying to convert you, never do that. God's in charge of who you know God to be. Mother Mary and Jesus, all I want is to be able to just plain stop, to just collapse, to hand myself to you, All I want is for you to just take over. I don't want anything else except for you to take over and for you to be me. And in that place, I notice a number of things that would have happened and which I want to share with you. But there is that sudden yearning to be able to pray like that when I've been off in fantasy land, when I simply woke up. But it is God who needs me that morning and wants me in, and it just pulls me, it throws me, it calls me to that place where I just want to be available to God. Are you with me? Is this making sense to you? Have you got this kind of experience? There are a number of phenomena that can happen with it. Number one, I can just lay there and just be quiet and wait. Perfectly good, perfectly kosher, perfectly fine. No problem. It's very, very legitimate. Here, Lord, help yourself to me. And I just wait. And whatever God is going to have happen, sometimes it deepens. And I feel myself going deeper. Not because I plunged in to go deeper, but I've let God help me. And so who is going to get me deeper? It's going to be God. And God gets me into this deeper place. And it's not necessarily so that I hear anything or do anything. I just know I've been taken to a deeper place. And whose business is it that suddenly I get this yearning to be taken over by God? And what intention could I believe this is all about? I know nothing about those things, folks. That's God's business with me. God just has brought me to the place of being available to God to get to this place and do this kind of experience. So that's the first thing that happens, is that there's just this willingness to give myself over and to be silent. Or some very specific prayer or some kind of circumstance or memory comes to mind which I give over to God at that point. Again, it comes to me to do that. It's not me who brings it up. It's God who is bringing up this sequence in healing in which it's necessary for this kind of a memory or this kind of an awareness to become so. There are other moves, though, that also occur. Now forget about being in that morning. Let's get up, get dressed. I'll wait for you. When I'm not laying in bed, but now I'm sitting and I, again, just simply let go. One of the phenomena that happens is that as I'm sitting there, I become aware of wanting to let go of this front of me, this bodily being, this face that's looking at you, that I suddenly have the yearning to let go of this aspect, to release it, or to be released from it, whichever wording you're comfortable with, because everybody's going to hear this differently, and go with it, have faith in it. And all I want to be able to do is just be released from what I experience as an inhibition, as an interference with the freedom of myself being with God without any impediment floating around there that I just want to be rid of. And so it's almost like a stepping back. I don't step back, but it's like a moving back, or that the front of me stands in place and all of a sudden there's a desire to let that front be there. That's not the part of me, that's not my soul standing in front there. And it's like a being moved back into my soul. At other times it becomes even stronger than that. I feel being pulled back. Pulled back. And it happens in any number of circumstances. One of the kinds of dreams, for instance, which I have, is I'm driving a car and now I want to park, or I have been parked and now I want to get out of park and I want to back up. And I begin to back the car up and I can't stop backing up, and I'm pushing on the brake, pushing. So stop the car from going back. Now, of course, what's happening here? It's God's pulling of me back to God. That it is God again in control, taking me deeper than I would be able to ever do by myself. And indeed, I wouldn't be able to do it myself because my human mind doesn't want it. But God now uses that opportunity to pull me back. Finally, I can wake up and all of a sudden God is there, that I'm in some kind of depth where God begins the dictating. Or with the foot ladder of Notes Divine every day, I simply go quiet, help yourself, loves, help yourself. And I just wait and wait and wait. Now these are varieties of prayer that I'm sharing with you with the hope that it's utilized by God to be of help with you. But all of them are dictated by God's intention with us. Healing means that God sets us up to receive the requirements of healing, sets us up to receive the content of what healing is, the experience of what healing is, which is the rise into your awareness of the God presence. That the deeper prayer that we're talking about is actually your experiencing of your God self. That there is a pulling away or a dropping of the non-God self. It's being let go of, and God has set you up to be able to reach this place of feeling another portion of your godly self. Now I hope these varieties of these experiences are helping two of you. Certainly there's more than this, and if you want to mention things or if you have questions on it, use our website, the ChristianLaityFoundation.org. And there's an email thing there, or if you have a question, you want to use a phone, there's a phone number there for you to reach me. Or I understand even on these YouTube sites, you can tell I'm not experienced with this kind of thing, that there's ways that you can type in looking for a comment or whatever. Feel free. This is serious stuff. And it's no accident that you have been speaking with me, that you have been looking and sharing with me these experiences that we're dictating, and indeed some of you have commented your gratefulness for some of the answers that they have discovered there. Do feel free. Do feel free. It's my joy, my ultimate joy is to be able to help you, to recover the awareness of your godliness, and to abandon the belief that your human self is the one and only self and is a true self when it's not, and that your home is the kingdom. And final statement, which is so important, that God has made to me, and I repeat it in any number of these, what shall we call them, these presentations, that God stated to me, there is but one truth, ye are gods and ye are loved, and God's entire direction is to pull you into this, that anything else is false or fraud, meaningless, has no sense whatsoever. And that's what all of this prayer is all about, to present to you the truth of yourself bit by bit, so you can safely feel that there's a replacement for what you give up even before you give it up. But you can feel there's a replacement for it, and it's a loving one. You are a God, and you are loved. Hope this is helpful, loves. Bye-bye for now.